Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me today. My name is Dominie Moss, and I am the founder of the Return Hub. We are a unique recruitment business, and we basically work with after a career break or those individuals who want to do a career transition. And I'm joined here today by my friend and colleague Helen Cowan, who is the founder of The Tall Wall. Helen has many, many years experience as an executive coach, and thank you for joining us today, Helen.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Dominie, and hello, everybody. A little bit of context about me and about the Tall Wall before we get into the meat of this, if that would be useful. As Dom said, the Tall Wall, we are an executive coaching company. And since the onset of COVID in March, we've been working with hundreds of professionals and leaders on this topic of resilience. And it's something we've always talked to clients about. It's just a fundamental of coaching. How do you maintain your energy and your resilience through difficult times? But as I'm sure everyone will understand and relate to, there's never been more of a pronounced sense of people's resilience being really impacted by COVID. So it's a topic that we're just talking to so many clients about at the moment.
That's right, and certainly in the 4 years since I launched the Return Hub business, we've helped lots of individuals with their resilience. Going back to work and relaunching your career after a break or doing a career pivot can be a bit of a bumpy journey. So we've learned and observed a lot over that time in order to help people with resilience. And of course, that has really accelerated over the last 9 months. And I certainly, for one, have had often moments, as I'm sure we all have, since lockdown, where we've had to sort of really dig deep and really sort of, practice resilience. I think one of the interesting statistics that has recently come out of some research was that 67% of leaders felt that they had to put on a brave face in front of their teams. And of course, that can often have a bit of a domino effect as that sort of is set as an example. And, others feel that they too have to put on a brave face. And I think one of the most important things when it comes to being resilient is acknowledging the fact that it's absolutely fine to feel low and to have those days and maybe even weeks where, you feel very low in energy, very flat. I sometimes use the expression of I feel like I'm trying to think and work through treacle. The day seems to take more energy to kind of get through. I think that, I don't know if that resonates with you, Helen.
I'm with you, Dom. I mean, I'm more resourceful than most. I'm a coach coaching people on this topic, and I have had days of feeling really flat and just, there's 10 things on my to-do list and I can't seem to get one of them done. And I've definitely had those days of feeling like I'm wading through treacle. And it's important to acknowledge that if you are feeling like that, you are not alone. I think there's a lot of expectations out there about what we should be doing and how productive we should be. You and I have joked before about all these ideas of how people should be using their time. And, maybe if you've been furloughed or made redundant, you should be learning a language or becoming a pastry chef or, losing your stone, your house.
It makes you feel even worse because of what you have. I think
it's ridiculous. We put so much expectation on ourselves, and there is so much out there in the media that sort of suggests that we, it's okay to feel flat for a little bit, but really we should be making the most of this and moving forward all the time, when some days are not like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's really can really help is to recognize where you get your source of energy from on those days. I had a recent a couple of weeks ago was out with a couple of colleagues, and just before obviously the new restrictions came in, and I got home and was feeling like a new woman. I was full of energy and I felt really bouncy and like I could felt like my old self. And one of my colleagues said to me, well, yeah, of course, because you are someone who gets energy from other people, and you've essentially been sat in your sort of front room for the last few months. Okay, great, lovely to have the family around, but in the daytime, obviously they're at school and working as well. So it really resonated with me to think, yeah, of course, that is where I get my energy from. So how do I replicate that? And of course, that's really difficult now with the added restrictions that have come in, where the most we can do is to go and meet a friend for a walk. One person from another household, which actually even those really small things can make the difference in a day, and give you that little bit more energy that you might otherwise have.
Yeah, you've got to find those small pockets, those small opportunities to replenish your energy wherever you get that from. So you're an extrovert, Dom. I'm not. I'm an introvert. So I don't get my energy from other people. What gives me energy is feeling purposeful and feeling like I'm achieving things in the day. So a really good day for me is feeling like I've ticked some things off my list, and the more I do that, the more I get energy. And there are some days where we're not going to be as productive as we might be, but it's about setting small goals, and maybe we'll come on to this, but setting small goals in your day so you feel like you're achieving something. That's where I get my energy from. And it's I think what's really fundamental in all of this is to set expectations for yourself and not to make them too high. A good day might be getting up, getting dressed, doing one thing on your to-do list and keeping everyone fed and watered. There may be days like that. We don't need to set our expectations too high all the time.
I think that's right. It's about setting those goals, achieving them in a really realistic way, setting realistic goals, actually, at the end of the day, thinking I did actually achieve those goals. And as you say, even if they seem like relatively small things, they will help you finish that day thinking, yeah, okay, I did what I set out to do today, and acknowledging that. I think obviously,
sorry, John. Sorry. Just on that point, even if you've had a terrible day and you feel like, God, it's been such a wasted day, I'm feeling quite flat. At the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow and you're about to close your eyes, just acknowledging to yourself 3 things you've been pleased to notice, 3 things you have achieved, and they could be teeny tiny things, but 3 things. I promise you there will be 3 things in the day that you have been pleased to notice about yourself. I didn't eat that 3rd biscuit. I made that difficult phone call that I was putting off. Or there will be things that you've done, and just closing your day, really acknowledging that you have achieved something, however small, is important. Sets yourself up for the next day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the other thing that you and I wanted to talk about, Helen, was about the sort of going back to basics. What are the essentials for us to what are the things we really need to kind of get through the day in a kind of healthy way, or the week or the month? And for me, I always sort of try and go back to really thinking it's good food, it's exercise, it's rest, and it's relationships. And how do we sort of bring ourselves back to those real essentials, and do those well, or try and do at least 3 out of 4 of them well anyway.
Or just 1 out of the 4 is fine. Those are the 4 pillars of resilience that you just mentioned that we've talked about before. So sleep, exercise, that's both physical and mental exercise, nutrition, so eating well, and relationships, so just having people you can connect with and have a chat with. What I always suggest to clients is to mark themselves out of 10 in those 4 pillars. So just do this for yourself. You know how much sleep you need. It'll be different for everyone. Yeah, I need 8 hours a night. That for me is a 10 out of 10 nights worth of sleep. How much sleep am I getting? How would I mark myself out of 10? And you do that for all those 4 pillars, and then ask yourself which one of those is suffering the most, and how might you just increase that number by 1 or 2. You're not looking for enormous changes here, but how might you just nudge yourself up by 1 or 2 points just to bring your resilience back? And again, it's about setting those expectations about what is possible. If you haven't been exercising for the entirety of lockdown, trying to set yourself an expectation that you'll go from 1 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 and start running marathons is probably too much. But how can you just nudge that up to really feed your sense of resilience, your inner resilience?
I heard of a brilliant, I think it was an app. I don't know if everyone else who's listening is aware of it, but it's called, I think it's Sofa to 5K, which is
Couch to 5K.
Couch to 5K. That sounds much better, doesn't it? Couch to 5K. which, you know, is great. You know, it's that support that you might need. So if you're sort of thinking, I'm not a runner, I've never been a runner. I've actually not a runner. I loathe running, but I have actually done a little bit of running over the last few months, and actually the last week, with the new restrictions coming in. And it absolutely does make you feel so much better. And, you know, even just like putting some headphones on, getting out in the fresh air. Obviously the weather at the moment is pretty much, you know, it's pretty good for the time of year. I'm looking out the window now and there's blue sky and sunshine. And so just taking those moments, if you can, to get outside, go for a walk, if you can't do a run, but just to get out there and maybe get away from the laptop, get away from social media. Although we're obviously on social media now.
Just there, shut your phone off.
Yeah, got it off just yet. You know, it really makes you come back and feels like, you know, you've got the blood pumping and the oxygen going around the body and around the brain, and that can, you know, can really tee you up for, you know, for a better day. I think the other thing, Helen, that we were talking about just before, well, just this morning, was the feeling that, you know, it's not like somebody either is resilient or they're not resilient. Like, you practice resilience.
Yeah, you can learn it. If you're someone who says, I'm just not a resilient person, actually, I would suggest that's not true. That just means you haven't got the skill yet. You haven't got the tools to be resilient. It can be learned. I also want to kind of dispel this myth about what resilience is. So the traditional sense of what resilience is like an elastic band where when you pull it, you know, under stress, it expands, but then it'll go back. It'll just bounce back. And this idea that resilience is we'll all just bounce back to how we once were. And I don't think that really takes into account how we change through adversity. When we're in difficult times, it does change us. And so I prefer to think about resilience as being able to adapt to change. And that's something you can learn. And change happens to us all, but how we adapt through change and how we transition is unique, and it will depend on all sorts of things that have happened to you previously and the sort of inner resilience that you have. So, you know, it's important to not think we're going to bounce back to how we were, but this idea of being adaptable and that you can work on that. That's something you can absolutely learn.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's perhaps a bit of a cliche, but one of the expression or phrases that we often lean on and refer to is the Darwin quote about it's not the fastest and the fittest and the smartest that survive, it's those that have the ability to adapt, you know, and evolve. And I think that is, you hit the nail on the head with that, Helen. It is the ability to adapt to a set of changed circumstances, and in doing so, regaining that sense of agency and control over an evolving, changing situation. And, you know, there are definitely tools and techniques and a mindset that you can use to help with that.
Yeah, and you talked about going for a run, and there's kind of two parts. This one is keeping your routine, which can really help us function well. But the other part is to shake up that routine a little bit. If you're feeling flat, do something different. Go for that walk, lie down for half an hour, listen to some music, read a magazine, eat something different for lunch. I mean, I can't tell you how many ham sandwiches I've had since the start of this whole crisis. And there's some days just like, right, I'm going to do something entirely different. I'm going to order takeaway for my lunch. You know, small things like that to shake the brain up, because sometimes we're sort of walking through and every day melds into one. Just doing tiny things, and the boundaries of what we can do that's different is narrow, to say the least, but doing what you can to just shake things up a little bit, make the brain think in a different way, see things in a different way, work in a different room, you know, do what you can to just try and get a different sense of energy for yourself. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. And obviously, Helen, we've also talked about the difference between, you know, having a tough day or a tough week, which is absolutely entirely normal. And I would challenge anybody to say they haven't had those moments of, you know, difficulty or low energy or feeling worried or anxious, all those sort of negative emotions. You know, there's obviously there's a difference between that very normal, the sort of ups and downs, and something more serious. And Helen, I know you wanted to say something about that.
Yeah, it's really important to recognize when feeling flat is tipping over to being depressed. And interestingly, all the sort of symptoms of feeling flat are very similar to the symptoms of feeling depressed. You know, maybe having difficulty sleeping, or feeling low energy, or feeling sad or guilty or angry. The really important thing to notice is how long do those feelings stay with you. So if this is more than a day or two at a time, and this is carrying on, and you're really feeling that you're in a bad place, that's the time to go and seek professional help. And what I really want to stress to people is, however you're feeling, is to talk to someone. You started off this live session by giving that statistic of leaders putting on a brave face, and how that takes a toll on them personally. And the best leaders I know are, yes, being optimistic and keeping positive, but they're also being vulnerable, because that helps their team to feel they too can be vulnerable and talk about how they're feeling. So the best thing I can say is to just acknowledge and put a label to how you're feeling, and tell someone that. And if you feel you need help, ask for it. It will be there. You've just got to ask for it.
Brilliant. All right, lovely. Well, Helen, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always such a pleasure. I will be doing a series of these Instagram lives over the next few months. So keep an eye out on the websites, both the Tall Wall website and the Return Hub website. And we hope to see many of you again in the future for our next Instagram lives. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us. And thanks very much again, Helen.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Dom. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.